Welcome to Making Sense of the Madness. We've got a great show lined up for you today. We've got John Gordon to talk about the assassination attempts on Trump, something that has kind of fallen by the wayside, not just in the mainstream, but also the alternative media. And then we got Brian Reisinger to talk about tariffs, but also pesticides and this incoming Trump 2.0 administration. You're not going to want to miss it. Buckle up and get ready to make sense of the madness. And we are back with the host of The Truth with John Gordon. John, before we get into, really, I want to talk about both assassination attempts, but we've got this new information that supposedly the Secret Service agent taking shots at Ruth was only 5 feet away, much different from the initial deal where they were telling us something different. What is your background? Tell us about the show, and why are you concerned with what they are telling us about the assassination attempts?
Well, that's a real loaded question. I have been a political observer since I was 10 years old and put on my first bumper sticker for Richard Nixon. I've been involved in the Georgia Republican Party for the last 30 years. I was chairman of the Georgia Republican Foundation. I've been a candidate twice, once for the state Senate, once for the Attorney General of Georgia in 2022 with President Trump's endorsement. So I watch this stuff. I pay attention. And the assassination attempt in Pennsylvania is particularly troubling to me. We have many more questions than we do answers. And I've also been an academician studying the Kennedy assassination since I was home from the fourth grade on November 22nd in 1963 with a bad case of the flu. I remember vividly waking up at about 12:30 in the afternoon and consciously thinking, John, if you don't get up and get out of bed, you're never going to get well. So I knew my mom watched As the World Turns every day at 1 o'clock, and I made my way downstairs to the family TV. And sure enough, there she was. And she said, "Oh, John, come sit next to me." And so that was not unusual for my mom. She was a very loving, nurturing person. But even the sound of her voice as a 10-year-old, I noticed something foreboding. And so I sat next to her on the sofa and I said, "Mom, is everything okay?" And she said, "Well, no." She said, "The president has been shot." And I could not really interpret the words. I couldn't understand what she was trying to tell me. Long story made short, I sat there for the next 4 days with my mom and dad. We watched the events unfold. My dad and I watched Oswald killed on national television in real time. And I have studied that assassination for the last 65 years, thinking that I was going to have to die and go to heaven before I would ever get the real answers. And then I read a series of books, The Men Who Killed Kennedy, The Case Against LBJ by Roger Stone, The Devil's Chessboard by David Talbot, The Unspeakable by Douglas, The Rush to Judgment, which is a kind of a classic in the Kennedy folklore, by Mark Lane, and a light bulb went off. It's been in front of us the whole time. Our own government killed Kennedy. Allen Dulles and the CIA orchestrated it from his townhouse in Georgetown after having been fired by Kennedy as head of the CIA. He continued as head of the CIA without the title. They pulled off this murder. They got away with it. And the similarities in Butler are striking. The perimeter was artificially constrained. If you look at the AGR building, you look at the whole perimeter as a pie, the AGR building was excluded from protection. I mean, it's as clear as the nose on your face. The people who were in the AGR building, counter snipers, who were actually sheriff's deputies, left their post just 2 or 3 minutes before Crooks became visible on the roof. 50 eyewitnesses saw Crooks on the roof, but the Secret Service missed it until he was in a sniper's prone position. And then the counter snipers adjacent to the president, who were charged with watching the AGR building, had their guns trained on Crooks. They had him in his sights, but failed to pull their trigger until they allowed him to get off 8 rounds of ammunition.
Well, let's talk about that.
So
Because
I'm not buying any of it. I'm not buying any of it. There's so much more to talk about.
I don't think he got off 8 rounds of ammunition. I think it's pretty clear. I mean, if you've read the internal report, and the only media outlet that I've seen report on it is that second volley that you hear after those initial 4 shots is actually that police officer that stuck his head up and then fired. And he's an ex-National Guardsman. He says he hit him. You don't believe that?
No, I do. I believe everything that you said, except it is unquestioned that Crooks got off 8 rounds of ammunition. There was a policeman that went up on the roof initially, and he counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, you can go watch the video. And then 30 minutes later, another cop comes up on the roof, and he says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, and 1, 2, 3. There are 5 over here, and then 3 over there. Now, you could explain that by Crooks changing his position or cocking the gun in a different way so the shells eject in a different to a different location. But there are 8 cartridges on the roof. A total of 12 shots were fired altogether. And I agree with you. There was a heroic cop that did take 1 shot at Crooks. I've not heard that it hit Crooks. Well,
he says he disarmed him. He says it hit the gun barrel.
Yeah,
and
you're right.
Hand.
You are correct about that. Yes, hit the gun barrel and may have hit Crooks in the shoulder. But
so to me, that means he's not firing after he gets shot like that. And the kill shot seems to be 5-6 seconds after any bullets are going off, and that's obviously from the sniper finally after the fact. I feel like they didn't want this guy talking after the fact.
That's the one. That's what I was talking about. I did forget about the lone cop acting on his own. But the counter snipers with the headphones and the binoculars and the long range scopes, that's the one I'm talking about. Just like you, they waited until the shooter had failed his mission and then took him out, silenced him. Now there is a fair amount of evidence that makes you question whether Thomas Matthew Crooks was the alleged assassin, would-be assassin. There was a guy named Maxwell Urich who drove a van from Mesa, Arizona to Butler, Pennsylvania. That van is titled to Urich Ammunitions, and Maxwell Urich's father owns that company. And there are also indications that company has traded arms with people in third world countries, perhaps with the encouragement or work with the CIA. Maxwell Urich was in Portland. He was in Atlanta. He was in D.C. with the riots of 2020. And the van was seen on national television being impounded and towed away from the venue moments after the assassination attempt. The story we were told was that it contained explosives. The day after the assassination attempt, Maxwell Urich's parents filed a missing persons report on him. To my knowledge, he has not been seen or heard of since. Another additional data point, he fought in the Ukraine and is believed to have known Roth, the assassination suspect, alleged assassin, would-be assassin in West Palm Beach. So the further down the rabbit hole you get, the more unseemly it becomes and the more questions that are raised.
Now, as I understand it, you're talking about the van that apparently dogs detected explosives or something with. It gets impounded.
Yeah.
And then when they went back to Crooks's home, they also stated that they found explosives, I believe, in his closet. Again, we've gotten so little details about everything, what types of explosives they were, whether they matched with the van, what happened to the van, as you stated, and really also on Crooks himself. Now, correct. I will say this, obviously, a lot of people pointed to that Black Rock video. If you look at the kid and his family, he's living there with his parents as a young adult. His job is in a facility that takes care of mentally ill and really elderly injured people. So in other words, he's around a lot of doctors and I would say medications all the time. I believe both of his parents are behavioral psychologists. I think there is, it's 100% this kid is heavily medicated on something. Now, that's something no one has really talked about. Now, I think that's one of the smaller aspects. Obviously, it's alarming that we don't have any social media posts whatsoever from somebody in their early 20s, especially somebody that probably, once again, doesn't have a lot of friends in person. Most people in that situation, especially in today's day and age, and I would argue the last decade plus, find a group online, and yet we have no evidence of that. There's talk of the encrypted communications possibly that this kid was making. There's also the evidence that the FBI may have been in communication with him prior to this. So, what are your thoughts on all of those subjects?
Well, I think the most disturbing thing to me is that Crooks visited the shooting range for a month or two before the assassination attempt, and someone signed in with him every time, and that someone's name was redacted from the records in an open records request. So we'd like to know who that was. There are also breadcrumbs that have been left from someone's cell phone that visited Crooks's home, I think 5 times maybe. And those breadcrumbs trace right back to what's the name of the location in Washington, D.C., where there are a lot of government offices. It's right on the tip of my tongue.
Langley?
No. It's like King of Prussia or Lenox Square. It's a live, work, play community right in the center of D.C. The cell phone breadcrumbs show that someone from Washington visited Crooks in his home at least 4, if not 5 times in the month or two leading up to July 13th. A Galaxy place, that's it. I'm pretty sure. And that's a known office building that houses the Secret Service, the FBI, ATF, offices in D.C. So there's not a direct linkage. I mean, it doesn't show that they went to a specific office. The trail kind of goes cold once you get in the office complex. But it certainly is more than a lot of smoke that needs to be unraveled. And you know, the way Cheadle behaved in that congressional hearing and the way Ron Rutrow behaved in the congressional hearing just makes me, every tentacle of my being, all my instincts are telling me something's not right. They're covering up, they're diffusing, they're pivoting, they're dodging and weaving. Just give us the damn truth and let the chips fall where they may. But I think they're not going to give us the truth because it points straight back to them or the CIA or some alphabet agency. Look, the deep state did everything they could to unseat Trump. It started the day of his inauguration in 2016. They started a coup to try and get him out as president. 2 fake and phony impeachments, 4 criminal prosecutions based on nothingness. All of them have largely fallen apart. Tucker Carlson said there's nothing left that they can try against Trump except assassination. Within a month, 2 days before the RNC, we're to believe this lone gunman crazed kid got up on the roof undetected. They may as well have hung us a neon sign that said, "Open, come on in, guns welcome." I mean, that's the way I interpret it.
I mean, he was walking around with a rangefinder as well. And the other, aspect on that, other than the media and how they reacted in real time and now after the fact, which is just as incriminating to me, is not only is he walking around with a rangefinder, but there's got to be dozens, if not hundreds of more videos out there from people that were taken. What have we seen? Like 10, maybe 10, like out of everything. This is 2024. This was a Trump rally.
Yeah.
There were people screaming. If anybody thinks that it's like the one video of them screaming, no, they've got video of so much more throughout the day. Just from the security surveillance alone, I can only imagine what they got on the ground after the fact. We have to realize people did die here. You had that individual, taken out of the bleachers, dead. You saw some of the stray bullets hit that arm in the water shootout. etc. The fact that we don't have videos everywhere is extremely troubling. Number two, the way the media first said it, they weren't even admitting to an assassination attempt. No media outlet whatsoever has done any investigative reporting on crooks whatsoever. If that guy takes a pot shot at Joe Biden or any other president previously, he's on the cover of magazines. I mean, think about just the Boston bombers. You know what I mean? There's none of that. You didn't see Crooks' face anywhere. I mean, very quickly, it just had all the hallmarks of, we don't want you to remember this. We don't want you to look into this. And quite frankly, we're not going to look into it. We're going to act like it didn't even happen. And then you have the Ruth thing happen, what? Within the next month.
1 month, almost 1 month and the day afterwards.
Which is completely insane. And you've got a guy who is living in Hawaii, has a home somewhere else. Hawaii's pretty damn expensive, is flying overseas, is in videos promoting the Ukraine-Russia war, and has his hair dyed yellow and blue. You dig a little deeper, this guy had a charge where he opened fire on police officers in New York City, I think all the way back in 2003, and somehow didn't get jail time then. I mean, think about that for a second, folks. That's post 9/11. Now he's doing overseas, it seems, operative work for intelligence agencies. Weird. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back. We are with John Gordon. You can check him out on his podcast, The Truth with John Gordon. You can check him out over at X and on Rumble and beyond. We're going to come back. We're going to discuss Ruth and much more. It's making sense of the madness. And we are back. All right, let's get into this second deal. Now, I guess the biggest piece of evidence that we got from law enforcement after the fact is like the picture, right? Of the backpack, of the gun. Okay. Now, I remember hearing this in the very beginning, being like, how in the world are they letting anybody get this close to this guy after the fact? And then you find out that it was really local law enforcement that got involved first, from an eyewitness on the ground on the highway watching this lunatic. And originally, when it's reported, now for me, it felt like the first time around, they wanted to do it on television. They wanted this to be a TV moment. Hey, another warning, another shock moment that's going to be embedded in history that no one's going to forget. There's some people, I mean, that don't even know it happened at this point. Like, oh yeah, that's right, he did get shot. Like, think about that. It's crazy. Now, the second time around, I think they just want him gone. They don't care. Now, allegedly, Trump, I think, is golfing, and I think MSNBC is with him. So maybe they would have caught it, or maybe something after the fact. Who knows? Maybe it would be Zapruder 2.0 if that happens, but certainly not the same deal. By the grace of whatever, it doesn't happen again. Somebody sees the rifle head poking through. But you know, as I understand it now, the Secret Service being 5 feet away from the barrel and not being able to subdue this guy, I mean, or eliminate him, et cetera, is extremely troubling. And the fact that we haven't heard anything about this guy after the fact, or a trial, or connections whatsoever, just as alarming. I'm going to let you take it from here.
Well, I agree with you. And, you know, I was sitting in my office right here on, it was August the 14th. Is that the date? I think it was the 14th. I can look and see real quick. But anyway, it was a Sunday afternoon, and I was working, watching football, and a news flash comes on, and I learned that there was a second attempt on President Trump's life. I'm 3 miles from Trump International Golf Course. My home is right across the Intercoastal Waterway. My producer and I, we jump in the car and we drive to Trump International Golf Course. And I spent the next 3 hours. We attended the press conference with the sheriff and the state attorney and the FBI and the Secret Service. And they said they were being totally transparent and forthcoming. I didn't learn anything from it other than basically what you just said, that they saw the rifle barrel poking through the fence. The Secret Service agent gave fire. You're the second person who's told me this week that Secret Service agent was within 5 feet. I had not understood that. I was of the impression that he was yards away from the shooter and that he just missed him. I don't know whether that's true or not. The fact of the matter is, we don't know. We don't know who the Secret Service agent was. They have not told us who the citizen on the street was that saw Ralph running for his car. I've spent probably 10 or 12 hours out there talking to everybody around the location that I could talk to, trying to find who the citizen was. And I have been unable to determine who it is, so we could maybe get some information. But the thing that was unmistakable to me, I know nothing about protecting high value assets, okay? That is a profession and a specialty in and of itself. But what I do know is that when I see Trump's motorcade coming and going, there are no less than 50 motorcycle cops from Palm Beach County, the sheriff's office, Palm Beach Police, West Palm Beach Police, Broward County, the State Patrol. I mean, it is a spectacle, and that doesn't even start to count the number of cars and agents and counter snipers that are in vehicles driving in the motorcade. And I've spent 3 hours walking around there. And when I left, the thing that was unmistakable to me is that with 3 guys, you could have secured the entire perimeter on the southeast corner of Trump, which was where that sniper positioned himself. One guy on the west corner, a cop, one cop on the southeast corner, and one on the northeast corner. You've got the entirety of Trump International that is exposed to the public covered. You could have had binoculars. You could have covered this whole street on Congress. Same on Summit. You could have seen the entirety of it. Ralph would never have been able to have gained access undetected. To me, again, it is more than an omission. It is an intentional dereliction of duty at best, and an invitation to somebody to come and take a shot at the president at worst. My instincts are leading me to the latter conclusion. It reeks of deep state. Ralph, $36,000 a year is what he claims that he made. And as you said, Jason, he's traveling the globe. He's flying from Hawaii to the Ukraine, back to West Palm Beach, getting around down here and staying somewhere.
Hawaii alone, again,
Yes.
for people that don't get it, should raise super a lot. If you're not pulling 6 figures, or you're not like 4th generation living there, it's not happening. And 6 figures, you're struggling.
Yes.
In Hawaii,
But-
everybody.
But you touched on the other really important thing that I want to also touch on before we run out of time. And that is, why are we not talking about it? Why are we not, meaning the media? You are, Jason. I am. I have a small megaphone. We're on the John Fredericks Radio Network every Saturday from 12 to 2 in Memphis, Atlanta, Richmond, Norfolk, Nashville, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, and Morgantown, West Virginia. I hope your listeners will come and join us there. I make an intentional point of talking about it every Saturday, if just for a minute or two, because we cannot forget that. Because if we do, we allow them to do what they're counting on, and that is it being swept under the rug. Vivek Ramaswamy, Elon Musk, Pam Bondi, and Kash Patel cannot allow this to be swept under the rug, because if they do, they leave Trump exposed. And let me tell you, those folks are coming after the deep state. Enough is enough. We don't want any more Butlers or West Palm Beaches. We want the Epstein files. We want all the secrets to come out, including, and I'll wrap this up on this point, the drones. I've been a pilot since I was 15. I've flown an airplane for 65 years. I have visited the Atlanta Center, Radar Control Center, just south of Hartsfield. I've been to the Atlanta arrival and departure, the Atlanta TRACON, they call it, in Peachtree City, Georgia. I know what their radar abilities are. I live in that system. I just flew from West Palm Beach to Los Angeles and back for Thanksgiving. I have lived in that system for 65 years. I know the capabilities. I know how they do it. There is zero, listen to me, zero chance that our government does not know where the drones have taken off from, where they have gone on their mission, and where they have gone and landed at the conclusion of the mission. They could answer that in a nanosecond. Why?
That's the problem, though, isn't it, John? Because this
No,
is
that's
happening right now. They're lying to our face.
totally.
That's not a great sign. Obviously.
But think about it.
Military industrial complex drones, yes, they have third-party corporate subsidiaries that are running the tests in conjunction with the military for plausible deniability.
Bingo.
You're right. It's absurd.
But
They're
you have to
lying
ask
to us
yourself
right
why.
now. Well, there's a lot of why I think they're trying to acclimate us to the fact that these are going to be used. I think that they're also trying to spook and hype a possible big event. Look, we haven't even sworn this guy in.
Well, I have a
think
theory,
he's
if I may.
perfect. He's the best thing we got.
100%.
You talk about the Epstein files. Look, man, we need JFK, RFK, MLK, Malcolm X, John Lennon, MK Ultra, every subsidiary, 9/11, the real Iran-Contra files. We need to put it all out there
100%.
and just say, hey, this is the reality. Now we need to reshape what is our intel community because we want to be a constitutional republic again. This has been an executive within an executive that is out of control and has been unaccountable now for decades.
You and I are perfectly aligned. But let me tell you what my theory is on why the drone thing has come onto the national forefront and why we're not getting the answers. What are we not talking about now that we should be talking about, but we're not, because we're talking about drones over New Jersey and nobody knows the answer when they obviously they know the answer. What are we not talking about? We are not talking about Hunter Biden's pardon, and we're not talking about the 1,500 people that were whose sentences were just commuted. It's probably the biggest story of Biden's presidency because he has allowed people that should not have their sentences commuted out, and the whole room is being consumed by these drones. It is a smokescreen. The media has fallen for it. The people are falling for it. We need to get the focus back on the dastardly deeds of Joe Biden and this corrupt, evil, rotten to the core administration. We've got 30 more days to go before we can get rid of it. Can we hold on that long? I hope so.
We'll see. Well, let me just end with this. We've also gone through 4+ years of a dementia patient clearly being installed and running nothing. And the acceptance of the general public. I mean, you couldn't look a real politically astute Democrat in the eye, in the face, and say, you really think Joe Biden's running the country? Even in 2020 when they installed him. They had 3, everybody knew.
It's a puppet.
Okay? So we've had puppets before. No doubt about it. I look at the second Bush administration, even the Obama administration. Yeah, smart guys, but smarter guys around them, not necessarily calling the shots. Trump is the first guy in my generation that actually wanted to be the president, right? Again, imperfect, but look at what they did to him. John, it has been a pleasure. You can go follow him at John Gordon Truth on X, or you can go check him out on the Truth with John Gordon show over on Rumble.